At St. Louis Acura and Alden Toyota, we are proud of our dedication to service, and we continue to serve our community. From now until December 12th, bring a new unwrapped toy from Marine Corps Reserve, Toys for Tots to support 323 Marines who in 2020 collected toys for over 78,000 children. Drop off at either St. Louis Acura or Alden Toyota. St. Louis Acura and Alden Toyota, becoming better than ever for you.
Hey, welcome back into Weekend Joe, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura, Munganess Alden Toyota here on ClaibsOnline.com. We are in the month of December. Football is starting to heat up, and we actually have some football news here out of St. Louis. So who better to bring on to the show than our good friend Howard Balzer, the H-Man. What's going on, H? How's Arizona?
Everything's good, Joe. Everything is good. Weather, of course, is glorious, although I hear the weather is going to be pretty good in St. Louis, as we always experience now and then. It kind of teases everybody with good weather in December and January and all that before it gets bad. But, yeah, enjoying it and enjoying covering a pretty good football team, obviously.
I was going to say, I mean, after all of the decade of Rams bullshit that you put up with, the final years they were here, and then you go and you make the trek out to the desert, and your first, last year was an anomaly of a season for what you were able to do, but this year, fans in the stadium, you're getting to cover a really good Arizona Cardinal team, best record in the NFL. But when you talk to people about who are the best teams in the NFL, it seems like the Arizona Cardinals are not brought up all that often.
No, they aren't. I mean, there's a lot of people who believe in them. I look at the power rankings, and there's people who have them number one. There's people having two. There's people having three. I think overall, understandably, I think that there's some people that want to say, okay, let's prove it. Let's still prove it down the stretch. I mean, last year they were 6-3, certainly not 9-2, but they were 6-3 and looked to be in great shape, and then didn't finish the season. Only won 2 of their last 7 games. So I think there's sort of a prove it factor there. But I'll tell you what's ironic about it, Joe, is, hey, I remember 99 and with the Rams and talking to some of my colleagues in the media, and there was and that's a team that finished 13-3. Probably would have been 14-2 if they needed the final game of the regular season. And there were still some people who didn't really believe the Rams. I don't know about it. And I remember getting into a long debate, actually with John Clayton, who said, well, I don't really think the Rams are that good and this and that. And I say, well, I'm telling you, man, I watched them every game. This team is not only explosive on offense, but they're underrated on defense. A lot of people forget that year, the Rams had they scored 8 defensive touchdowns that year. So they were good on special teams too. They had 3 special teams touchdowns. So there were people back then who kind of didn't believe in them until they proved it in the playoffs. And I think probably that's what the Cardinals will truly have to do to make people believers. Although you would think that the last 3 games, without Kyler Murray, without DeAndre Hopkins, without a couple starters on the offensive line, and without J.J. Watt, they won 2 or 3 games with Colt McCoy at quarterback. So you would think that would show that this team is pretty good. But some people take a little while to believe. So Cardinals, they don't pay attention to all that. They just go out there and play every week.
How does this happen every year, though, in the NFL of all sports? Because I remember last year, the Pittsburgh Steelers were the last team to lose a game last season. And the whole time people, you know what? They're not that good. They're not that good. They're not that good. And okay, in the end, they ended up not being, they had injuries riddle them at the end of the season. But still, the whole time it was, these teams are all better than the Steelers, but they had the best record in the NFL. So why is this something that seems to be so common in this sport?
It's a good question. And maybe it's, again, people want to be proved that a team is really good. Maybe it's like that whole knock them off the pedestal attitude that sometimes there is with a team that's looking really good, but they're kind of newcomers to the dance, if you will. I mean, no one would say that obviously about the Packers because they've got Aaron Rodgers at quarterback and they have a proven guy. They wouldn't say it about the Buccaneers because they have Tom Brady, even though, Tampa Bay has been a little bit inconsistent. So like I said, I think it's when someone is making a move that wasn't expected to the level it is. I mean, I think a lot of people thought the Cardinals would be better, would be an improved team, but they still had to prove it. But let's remember, too, prior to the season, Cliff Kingsbury was on the list of maybe top 3, top 5 coaches most likely to be fired. Now there's stories about Oklahoma wanting to come after him, and he's one of the top 3, 4, 5 candidates for coach of the year. So that just shows what can happen. But like I said, I think there's some who just want to be contrarians, want to knock someone off the pedestal, want to find something wrong with teams. And this is not a perfect team by any stretch, but there are none in the NFL. I think when you look at the top teams in both conferences, people ask me all the time, are the Cardinals the best team? Well, I don't know. They have the best record right now, but who's the best team? I don't know if anybody can really say because I think it's that close between most of the teams in both conferences with the best records.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it does change every week. For a while, it seemed like it was going to be the Bills, but then they slip up. Then it's the Titans on their run, and then they've lost their last 2. And the Packers with all of their issues, it really is hard to tell. But let's circle back to Cliff Kingsbury, because the big story right now is everything, the coaching carousel with Brian Kelly going down to LSU and now a job open at Notre Dame, and Lincoln Riley going out to LA. So you have Notre Dame and Oklahoma, 2 of the biggest programs in college football with job openings. With a name like Cliff Kingsbury out there, I get why college is more attractive than the pros with the control that you have. So is a young coach like Cliff Kingsbury tempted to make that jump in the middle of a season like what he's having right now?
Well, the interesting thing about that is he has professed often about how he likes the pro game better because it's 24/7 football. You're not worrying about kids in class and school and all those other things. And obviously you don't have a turnover in a program with players leaving after 3-4 years, whatever it might be. So he's always said he loves the NFL game better than college. And the irony, Joe, is that, they were on their bye last week, but the week before that, there was a lot of a discussion about his relationship with Kyler Murray. And he was saying, I think we're tied together. And Murray said the same thing. I said, I think we can be together for a long time and do a lot of really good things. And I think Kingsbury believes that. I think he won't refute the rumors because they were probably put out there by his agent because has 1 year and an option left on his contract. And so I'm sure a lot of it was fueled by that. But I don't know. There's not many people who think he's going to leave. And the funny thing is, I mean, that whole thing broke on Sunday. So I was looking at some stories around the internet today, and it seemed saw about 4 or 5 different stories. And I know it's all speculation with different candidates for the Oklahoma job. And Cliff Kingsbury wasn't even mentioned in any of them. So that just shows that no one really believes this to have a chance. The only thing that might open a guy's eyes is the money being thrown around to some of these coaches with the Lincoln Riley deal, heck, with the Tucker deal, that he got from Michigan State. I mean, some of this money is crazy, and most entry-level guys in the NFL don't make a tremendous amount of money for their first 4 or 5 years, depending on how long the contract is. So I'm pretty confident if he finishes the deal, and when I say finishes the deal, I'm not saying win a championship, but if this team finishes the deal, wins the division, is in the playoffs, maybe wins a game, or who knows. I mean, you're playing the best teams when you get in the playoffs. I'm fairly certain that he's going to end up with a contract extension after the season. And they have to deal with Kyler Murray with a new contract too, probably coming up next offseason.
H, you've been covering the NFL and football as a whole for over 40 years. Now, are we going on 50 years? Are we at the 50 yet? Or
I'm not at 50, but it's about halfway between 40 and 50. So
okay,
pretty soon I'm going to be on the back end of those of that 40 years. And
all right,
approaching
so
50.
What year into this job did you realize that you can't believe anything that a coach or an owner says?
Oh, I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know if there was one light bulb moment where I said you can't trust these guys, because a lot of the time in the kind of early on when I was covering the league, but I was at the Sporting News and I was more quote national, and even though in St. Louis I certainly followed Cardinals closely, but I wasn't there every day and seeing everything that was said. and all those things. But you could tell pretty quickly that coaches are only going to say certain things. Now it's gotten worse. I don't think there's any doubt. Only because there's so much media and there's so much internet stuff and social media and all those things. I mean, I remember when you talk about telling the truth, I remember a classic NFL draft story. And I think it was either 1981 or 1982 for the draft on ESPN. And Paul Zimmerman, the Packers drafted Rich Campbell, a quarterback from Cal. I think it was 6th overall in the first round. And Dr. Z, Paul Zimmerman, Sports Illustrated, is on the set in New York, and the cameras go back there, and he says, "I'm never talking to the Packers again. They lied to me." He actually said that on the air because whoever he talked to at the Packers in the front office told him they were not interested in and would not draft Rich Campbell in the first round. But it was on TV. I'm sure he had been accustomed in previous years doing his mock draft and doing his scouting stuff, and he wouldn't name sources, obviously, but most everyone told him the truth of what they really felt about players. Well, once it becomes so public like that, everybody becomes guarded, and most of the time doesn't tell the truth. And now, for the most part, everyone talks around it. And, it's not like they lie. Maybe sometimes they do, but it's not like they lie. They just tell the truth as it exists that moment. And so that's just basically the way it is. But like I said, I think it's gotten a whole lot worse over the years because of the proliferation of how much media there is and how one thing you say can just blow up into craziness.
And that, whenever you guys get a chance to ask Kingsbury about the Oklahoma job, I'm sure everything he says will be taken with a grain of salt. But I asked that more because of what we just witnessed here in St. Louis, as the Rams, the Rams lawsuit, the St. Louis lawsuit, has come to an end last Wednesday. $790 million settlement being given to the city of St. Louis. Did you ever expect this to make it to trial in January?
No, never thought it would.
Did you think it would end as early as it did then?
No, I didn't think it would end that early. I thought it'd probably be a lot closer to when they went to trial. But I never thought it would be settled. I mean, I never thought it would go to trial. I always thought it would be settled because the NFL was dead set on having we talk about lies and deceit and mischaracterizations, all of those things tied into one. All the things that the NFL and the Rams did during the process, they didn't want it in an open courtroom. And that's right. Why they fought so hard to keep it out of court and not have it be decided by a jury, to have it done by arbitration. Heck, they tried to get it to the Supreme Court. So you knew they didn't want to get it that far. But no, I didn't think it would be settled this early. And I frankly thought the settlement would be a bit more. But, probably, unless there was some hidden agreement that was done behind the scenes to say to St. Louis, hey, play ball with us on here, with this, we'll look kindly on you in the future. And it just seems weird that they settled for what they did that early. And maybe someone said, hey, this is our offer today. And if you don't agree to it today, then it's not going to be there in a month. Well, who would believe that? Right. If they're willing to pay that today, what would they be willing to pay on January 2nd, a week before trial or whatever it would be? So, I thought it would be more, but, I don't know if in the whole expansion team deal that was certainly fueled by just rumor and speculation and all those things. It appears that was never a realistic result, that the only way that could have even had a possibility of happening was that if it did go to trial and then there was a $3-4 billion award, then all of a sudden maybe something like that could have happened. But if the league can get away with paying $790 million, then they're thrilled with it. I mean, they're absolutely thrilled with it. Think of it in this term. Now, we don't know yet how the money is going to be split, how much Kroenke is going to be responsible for. Will it be split 32 ways? But whatever it is, let's just say it's 32 ways. Do the math. That's about $25 million per team. That's the cost of one veteran free agent who's a really good player in the offseason. One, heck, the first pick in the draft, I believe, gets around a $15 or a $16 million signing bonus, and they haven't even played it down. And so that money per team is like nothing to these owners. And so they definitely got off easy. And I think, that's the big question, why it was settled. But I'm sure they figured, hey, take what's offered now. If it does go to trial, who knows if you win or not. And even if you do win, the NFL can delay and delay and delay with appeals. And so I'm sure that was probably a big part of the decision. And I think the mayor in the city and the county executive, I don't know how keen they were on having an expansion team. I really don't. I think they prefer to have the money. Now we have to trust them to do the right thing with that money. And that's going to be an interesting process to follow.
So that still is a lot of money. And when you look back at, everything that played out the last time the NFL was in this situation, you're still talking over $750 million for awarded to the city over this, which shows, I guess, which admits guilt by the Rams, by the NFL for the way they handled things to just write this and make it go away. So in the end, do you consider this a victory for St. Louis? Can the city feel good about what they accomplished there in this lawsuit?
On that level, you can, absolutely. But you still go back to the whole notion is that if the league had done the right thing, then St. Louis would still have a football team. And that's the one thing that can't be overlooked in all this, is that St. Louis, as I've always felt, was collateral damage for the league wanting Stan Kroenke's money in LA to build the palace and build everything around it and all those things. And they didn't care if St. Louis was collateral damage. They didn't care that they were taking a team out of, a pretty strong sports market and a very good, excellent football market. And so that's the bad feeling in it, is that they never should have lost this team. And so, but you can feel good that you brought the NFL to its knees and forced them to settle for pretty decent amount of money. Now, obviously, the attorneys are going to get a big chunk of that, and it's going to be somewhere around a little over $500 million for the city and county, and figure out what they're going to do with it. But by doing what they did, they definitely brought the NFL to its knees. But you kept hearing all along, Joe, that the city and certainly the attorneys wanted to go to trial just to be able to show the world all the things that happened behind the scenes. And now you have the situation where, and I know the Post-Dispatch is going to try to get a lot of the documents, and they've gotten some of them, but part of the agreement was that all the documents would be destroyed. And so that's so NFL. Let's remember Spygate and the Patriots and all the tapes that they discovered, that the league discovered the Patriots had going back years and years. And who knows if there were some tapes in there of the Rams before Super Bowl 36. And what happened? They slapped the wrist of the Patriots and Bill Belichick and destroyed the tapes. So that's what they love to do. They don't want anybody to see the evidence in things that are going to make them look bad. So this is the way they do business. And I think a lot of people have noticed that and seen it, even if they don't know a lot of the details that many of us know with how the Rams and the league acted in this entire process.
We're about 10 weeks away from the Super Bowl where that week Roger Goodell will have his State of the NFL meeting that I know that you tried to attend and talk to. If you were given the opportunity to ask a question during that, would you ask a question about the way the lawsuit with St. Louis played out?
Yeah, I probably would. I'd have to figure out what question I want to ask, because you only get one, and how you want to frame it. But I will say this. I had a private conversation with Roger Goodell at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I want to say 3 or 4 years ago. And it was just me and him in this room waiting for this luncheon to start. We were talking about this and talking about that. And then I brought up, St. Louis, and I said, that just wasn't right, Roger. What happened there, it just wasn't handled very well. And then he actually said to me, he said, there could be things that could be criticized on both sides. So he was still going to maintain that St. Louis did wrong, whatever that could be. I don't think St. Louis did anything wrong in that, but he did acknowledge that there were some wrong things done on the other side. Obviously, he's never going to admit that publicly, but he did say that privately. But it's, I guess the question I would probably ask if I had the opportunity is, why did the league feel necessary to have St. Louis be collateral damage to wanting Stan Kroenke's money in LA so much that this market should not have lost an NFL team? I'd be very interested to hear his response to that. And it's at some day I will have the opportunity to ask him, even if it is privately.
Were you happy with the national coverage that everything was getting towards the end there? Because it was picking up steam, as opposed to 2 months ago where nobody even knew that it was going on.
No, exactly. And I still don't think it was covered very much nationally. And the funny thing to me is that Pro Football Talk with Mike Florio all of a sudden was acting, as he often does, acting like the arbiter of moral police, was talking about how the national media hasn't covered this and haven't written about it. Well, he didn't either. Right. He hardly ignored it. He hardly covered it until the last few months. So he did, but I didn't see a whole lot nationally on it. And in terms of other outlets, whether it was the New York Times or Washington Post or any big national places. But here's the thing about it. Right after the move happened, I had put together a timeline on everything that happened with this after Stan Kroenke gained control of the team in April of 2010. And I put a timeline together that also then at points included quotes from Demoff, from Kroenke, and just spelled out the whole corrupt nature of this process. And I sent it to a bunch of my colleagues in the national media, and I sent it to Mike Florio, and I sent it to Peter King, and I sent it to several others. And they basically not only ignored it and didn't do anything on it, they never even responded to my email. And so that's that, they didn't want to touch it. And I'm sure to a degree they probably felt that, well, St. Louis feels wronged in this, but no one else cares around the country. The people in Green Bay, the people in Cincinnati, the people in Dallas, wherever it is, do they really care what happened in St. Louis? Maybe not. Maybe they care if it happened to their team, obviously.
Right.
But they probably didn't care all that much. So no, but it was just interesting to me to see Mike Florio call out the national media when he didn't cover. He barely wrote anything on it for 4 or 5 years until just the last few months.
And that was my thing when I was, when people would kind of catch wind of it and ask me, like people in the national media that would catch wind of it, and they would ask me, like, why isn't it being covered? I'm like, you know what? People don't care. Like, if you're a Cowboys fan, why should you care what's going on between the Rams and the city of St. Louis? Now, if Jerry Jones had to get up there and testify and his emails and his books and everything were leaked, then maybe you start to pay a little more attention. But nothing that was going to happen in that lawsuit was going to affect how any on-field operations for any of the 32 NFL teams. So, and that's why I don't think anybody really cared about it nationally.
No, I think that's right. And, I actually too, at one point sent a note to, and they weren't going to do something during the lawsuit. I wonder if maybe now that it's over, someone will, but I had sent notes to people I knew at ESPN, which I never was expecting because obviously they're a partner with the NFL, but I also sent it to HBO because a lot of time I knew a guy there that handles a lot of the documentaries that they do, and they do an excellent job on a lot of them. And I put it out there, and he just came back and said, this isn't something, it's an intriguing story, but it's not something that we would really, have interest in. And so people just didn't want to, touch it. Now, it would be great. It would be a great ESPN 30 by 30, but does anybody ever expect that to truly happen? Probably not. And, and even Seth Wickersham, who's written, done a lot of great reporting on a lot of things associated with it, with the Kroenke story from several weeks ago and all those things. But I mean, heck, he could probably find out a whole lot if he wanted to. And I've communicated with him about it, and he hasn't done anything. Maybe now it'll change, but I kind of doubt it.
Well, H, you have a few weeks left of the regular season down there in Arizona before a playoff push for the Cardinals. What are you going to be able to get on the road at all for the playoffs? Are you expected on doing that, or are you just fine doing the home games there in Arizona?
Yeah, I'm fine doing the home games. I guess it would depend if they had a road game, where would it be in terms of the travel? Certainly if they can end up winning the division, and even if they don't get the number 1 seed, if they get the number 2 seed, if they would win their first game, then they'd be home for a second game, and then they could possibly be on the road for an NFC Championship game. That would kind of be cool if it was in Green Bay to go there, but man, I don't know. I've gotten too accustomed, I think, to the Arizona weather to chance going to Green Bay in January. So, but
you've been spoiled. You've been spoiled with domes all these years of your football coverage.
Absolutely. So, and any other team that they might play on the road, I mean, it would be one of the teams that would be a division winner, and so that could be Dallas, it could be Tampa. I mean, yeah, Tampa wouldn't be a bad spot to go, but I might consider it. We'll see, but I'll probably just end up. I'll tell you one thing. There's certain things that are better about watching on TV than being there, and especially where we are in the press box at Cardinals games is basically in the corner of the end zone, and it's a better view watching on the Jumbotron, even though the Jumbotron is clear across the stadium in the other end zone. It's sometimes a better view seeing that than actually watching the play on the field, because we're so high and it's pretty far from the action. So in a lot of ways, it's pretty good to watch on TV. And so you get a little different perspective. Of course, the flip side of it being there, you get to participate in the interviews post game and all those things. So that's always important. So, we'll see. We'll see when it gets to the postseason, assuming they're there, and see how that road leads for them.
I know this will be the last time you and I talk on air until we're together in Los Angeles. So I want right now. So here we sit. December 1st is when we're recording this, Howard. I want to know, who are your top? Give me your top 5 teams in the NFL right now.
Oh, okay. That's fair enough. I'm going to say certainly the Cardinals in Green Bay, and then after that, I'll tell you, I'm going to say Kansas City, because I think they're on the way back now, and I think they're going to continue winning and have one of the better records in the AFC. And I'm going to say the Patriots. I mean, the way they're now, granted, you have to have a lot of faith in Mac Jones as the games get more important, and it's his first experience with big games in the NFL, obviously coming down the stretch of a season, much less in the playoffs. But man, he just seems so poised and obviously so well coached that it certainly looks like he can handle it. The Rams, I thought going in that they weren't going to be as good as a lot of people thought they would be. Tampa Bay is always dangerous. They got to get some of their injured players back, so they're probably in there. So I'm going to go Arizona, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Kansas City, and New England. And maybe a wild card would be Buffalo and Baltimore. But they've just been so inconsistent that I'm not so sure that they're going to hold up when it gets to the postseason. But they're pretty close, I think, to that top 5.
Is it Buffalo and New England this weekend, right?
Yes, Monday night. Night. Yeah, the Bills and the Patriots play twice in the final 6 games of the season. So obviously that's going to say a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say that'll clear up that top 5 and let you know who sits in there with those 2 games. Definitely. All right, H. It's been fun catching up, talking football with you. I know you and I will talk more in the weeks to come, but look forward to seeing what the NFL landscape looks like the next time you and I talk on the air, as we'll be coming to people from Los Angeles. So looking forward to that, Howard. Talk to you very soon.
Yep, looking forward to that, and happy holiday to you, and this great holiday season to you and everyone out there in Claib's online world.
Thank you very much, Howard. Happy Hanukkah to you as well this week, and catch up very soon. Thank you.